Allow me to introduce myself. I am Claire. I am in my 45th year of life. I have been united in marriage for 2 decades. Our family includes 2 young adults, both nearing the end of their teenage years, on the brink of embarking on their own journeys away from home. From the exterior, all appears to be well. And that's the term I consistently employ. Very well. Quite satisfactory. Unimpressive. Very well then. Each morning, I find myself beside the same man with whom I have shared my bed for 20 years. We share a morning meal together. We discuss the expenses, the children's activities, the little intricacies of everyday existence. He is a decent fellow. Dependable. Unwavering. Yet, at some point in our journey, the affection we once shared subtly transformed into mere habit. And routine has a tendency to wipe away the fragments of yourself that you believed would remain forever. First, it escaped my attention. The small details. How he ceased to truly notice me the moment I entered a room. I ceased wearing my beloved perfume, as it appeared that no one acknowledged its presence any longer. How our dialogue shifted from aspirations and ambitions to mundane tasks. And who's responsible for the dry cleaning? It unfolded gradually. Silently. It was on a particular day that I came to the realization. It had been ages since I experienced the sensation of being genuinely acknowledged. In that moment, I found myself in a tranquil, serene, and vacant realm. When it all unfolded, when he re-entered my world, the journey began with a simple invitation, a celebration of love. A college friend, who had long insisted she would never tie the knot, was finally taking the plunge into marriage after years of declarations to the contrary. I nearly chose to stay away. Yet, a whisper within me, perhaps it was nostalgia, perhaps it was boredom, or perhaps the subtle ache I had been harboring, urged me to say yes. As I perused the guest list on Facebook, his name caught my eye. Ethan. In an instant, a quarter of a century of my existence vanished without a trace. Ethan was the love of my life. Far from the secure and predictable variety, yet the searing, wild, utterly engulfing sort. Our paths crossed during our 2nd year of college. He embodied all that I lacked. Untamed. Assured. Radiant in a manner that commanded the attention of all. He awakened a sense of vitality within me that I had never experienced before. For 3 years we were bound together, unable to be apart. We envisioned a future where we would exchange vows. We believed we would possess it all. Yet, in that moment, he received a job offer abroad. 1 year of school remained for me. We promised we would find a way to make it happen. Yet we did not. Obstacles of distance, the passage of time, the complexities of life. It all conspired against us. We parted ways at the airport, vowing to keep in touch, to reach out, to reunite. Yet, you understand the nature of such promises. Once he departed, I endeavored to forge ahead. Indeed, I followed through. A year later, I encountered my husband. He exhibited a gentle nature. Unwavering. All that Ethan was not. For an extended period, I was convinced that this was sufficient. Yet encountering his name once more, it resembled the flicker of a flame igniting in the shadows. I found myself transfixed by the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. I navigated to his profile. He appeared transformed. Naturally, he did. More mature. There are slight creases forming around the eyes. A hint of silver threaded through his hair. Yet there remains Ethan. The identical smile. The very look that had once unraveled me entirely. I refrained from sending him a message. Initially, not at all. Yet, on the following night, once the house had succumbed to slumber, I filled a glass with wine and found my gaze lingering on his name once more. Before I could rein in my impulses, my fingers danced across the keyboard. "Will you be attending the wedding?" I was taken aback by his prompt response. Yet he did. "Indeed. I had wished for your presence." My breath hitched. Subsequently, another message arrived. "I wished to meet with you. For the final occasion. Merely to bid farewell in the right way." My fingers lingered just above the keyboard, poised in anticipation. I had the option to refuse. I might have chosen to overlook it. I had the option to erase the message and return to my ordinary existence. Yet I refrained. I typed with deliberate slowness. "All right. Only for closure." Yet the reality? Even while penning those words, a part of me was aware. What I truly desired was never closure. On the eve of the wedding, he reached out to me once more. Shall we dine? Only the two of us. Free from anticipation. Simply reconnecting. Embrace the absence of anticipation. What a deception that was. That afternoon, I found myself before my closet, gazing at the array of clothes within. For years I had only dressed for my own satisfaction, indifferent to the opinions of others. Yet, on that particular night I did. I selected an elegant black dress. Not an excessive amount. Not too sparse. Merely sufficient. As I stepped into the restaurant, my heart raced with anticipation. And then I laid my eyes upon him. Perched at a table beside the window, a glass of wine cradled in his hand, he waited. In that instant it seemed as though a mere heartbeat had slipped by, rather than a quarter of a century. It seemed as though no time had passed whatsoever. Upon catching sight of me, he rose to his feet. "Claire," he murmured gently. In an instant I found myself reliving the vibrant days of my 20s. We embraced. It was courteous, secure. Yet that seemingly insignificant gesture unleashed a torrent of memories, cascading through my mind. The sensation of his arms enveloping me once felt like home. He would kiss the top of my head as if it were the most effortless gesture, as if it belonged to the very fabric of our existence. I withdrew before I allowed myself to dwell on the memories too deeply. We took our seats. A bottle of wine was ordered. For a time it was merely casual conversation. "How have you been faring? What are you up to at this moment? In what place do you reside?" Yet gradually the dialogue began to change. He shared with me the stories of the places he had visited, the connections that faded away, the instances when he held me in his thoughts yet chose silence instead of connection. I shared the story of my marriage with him, reflecting on the positive aspects. "Very well." He inclined his head, observing me intently. "Being fine doesn't equate to being happy," he murmured softly. And a constriction gripped my throat. For that was precisely what Daniel had uttered in a different existence, a separate narrative, and it held true. We shared a hearty laugh reminiscing about our college days. We reminisced about the nights we lingered in conversation until the dawn broke. We reminisced about the melodies that once filled our days, the stories we used to exchange. Amidst the echoes of laughter and the stillness that followed, a subtle change took place. My gaze fell upon him, truly examined him. The creases etched upon his skin, the silver strands woven through his hair, the burden of the countless years that separate us. Yet he remained in my sight, the young lad who captured my heart, the man I perhaps never ceased to love. As the last bite of dinner was savored, a shared reluctance hung in the air, neither of us ready to let the evening slip away. Thus we strolled onward, wandering along hushed avenues, traversing spaces that evoked a sense of both recognition and novelty. Our words were few. There was simply no necessity for it. At last we came to a halt, finding ourselves beside my car. A lengthy silence enveloped the room. He then spoke in a gentle tone. "You know, I've often pondered the sensation of encountering you once more. If it were to cause pain, or if it would evoke the warmth of returning home." "So," I murmured. He offered a faint smile. "It seems to embody both." Our lips never met. That night was different. Yet, as I made my way home, my mind was consumed by thoughts of it, and I was aware. This did not bring closure. It was a completely different experience. It was an uncertainty that lingered, a force I doubted I could contain. I promised myself that our paths would not cross once more. That singular dinner sufficed. We reminisced, exchanged a few cherished moments, and chuckled over bygone days. I believed I could simply shut the door at that moment. Yet I found myself unable to do so. The days that followed that dinner were imbued with an unsettling quality. All things appeared indistinguishable. My abode, my partner, my little ones. Yet a transformation had taken place within me. It felt as though a delicate thread had unraveled, setting everything into motion. Thoughts of Ethan consumed my mind. I made an effort to cast it aside. I immersed myself in the daily grind, preparing breakfast, responding to emails, tackling laundry, feigning that everything remained unchanged. Yet, in those hushed intervals during drives as I awaited the coffee's rich aroma, Or while lying beside a man oblivious to my stillness, I would often revisit the way Ethan gazed at me, as if I remained unchanged, not the version of me that was overshadowed by 2 decades of obligation, yet the girl he had once cherished. After 3 days, a message from him arrived. "Would you like some coffee? Could we have just one more moment before I go?" My fingers lingered just above the keyboard, poised for action. I wrote, "I don't believe this is a wise choice." Subsequently, I removed it, and instead I typed, "At what time?" Our paths crossed at a quaint little cafe nestled in the heart of downtown. The instant he came into view, a weight settled in my chest. He sat by the window, cradling his coffee, an air of unease about him. Upon raising his gaze and catching sight of me, a smile spread across his face. In that moment it felt as if my heart had paused, suspended in time, as if it had forgotten the very rhythm of its existence. "Hello," I murmured gently. "Hello," he replied, his voice a soft reflection of hers. We took our seats. A cup of coffee was ordered by us. In those initial moments, a gentle illumination filled the space. Secure. We discussed the wedding. Concerning our shared acquaintances. The topic at hand revolves around the atmospheric conditions. Yet, in an instant it transformed. He leaned in a bit, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Claire, may I pose a question to you?" "Naturally. Do you find joy in your life?" I stood still, caught in a moment of disbelief. It was the identical inquiry he posed at the dinner table. Yet, on this occasion it carried a weightier burden. I found myself wanting to say yes. I wished to express that my life was abundant, fulfilling, and satisfactory. Yet the words lodged themselves in my throat. I simply shrugged my shoulders. "I'm all right." He inclined his head, gazing directly into my eyes. "Being fine doesn't equate to being happy." I took a deep breath. "I have a good life," I murmured, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "A husband who is gentle. Well, children. A dwelling. It is steady." He inclined his head with deliberation. "But could it truly be you?" In that moment it dawned on me that I was devoid of a response. A lengthy silence ensued. He extended his hand across the table, lightly grazing his fingers against mine. It was a feather-like caress, almost non-existent. Yet it ignited a surge within me that had long been dormant. Our visit was brief. As we departed from the cafe, a gentle rain began to fall. He escorted me to my vehicle. In that fleeting instant we simply remained still, suspended in time. Quiet. It felt as though we were both poised, anticipating an event that lingered just beyond our reach. He gazed at me, his eyes probing into my own. "I have often pondered," he murmured gently. "Had we remained together, would your life have taken a turn for the better? Or perhaps something even more dire?" I inhaled unsteadily. "I'm not sure," I murmured. "Yet it occupies my thoughts more than I care to acknowledge." He offered a wistful smile. "I feel the same." Our lips never met. That day was not meant to be. Yet as I pulled away, a certainty settled within me. This was far from finished. 7 days passed and once more he reached out to me. "Shall we dine?" "Merely dinner." "I vow." And I replied in the affirmative. The establishment was a quaint eatery nestled just beyond the city's bustling borders. Stillness. Softly illuminated. As I entered, he was already present, awaiting my arrival. This time, it lacked the warmth of reconnecting with a familiar companion. It was as if I had returned to a moment that had lingered in the shadows, never truly concluding. Our conversation stretched on for hours, concerning all matters. The existence he had experienced, the decisions he lamented, the evenings filled with tears after his departure. Each time a particular song played, he was reminded of me in a way that lingered in the air. It was unrefined, truthful. It seemed as though no one had addressed me in such a manner for ages. In a fleeting moment, he extended his hand towards mine. This time I remained steadfast. I allowed him to take it in his hands. In that fleeting instant, everything else faded away. Following our meal, we strolled outdoors. Silence enveloped the city. The atmosphere was pleasantly warm. Once more we found ourselves standing before my car. And then came the silence. The extended silence. The kind that fills you with a sense of foreboding, yet you find yourself paralyzed by fear and an overwhelming need to see it through. "Claire," he murmured gently. I raised my gaze. And before I had the chance to ponder, before I could recall all the justifications for restraint, he pressed his lips against mine. The kiss lacked any semblance of politeness. It was not even a reluctant one. The pace was languid, profound, brimming with a quarter-century of possibilities unfulfilled. And when his lips met mine, a spark ignited within me. I ought to have distanced myself. I ought to have declined. Yet I refrained. For the first time in years, I experienced a profound sense of vitality. As he finally released his grip, we remained frozen in place, our breaths coming in quick gasps, locked in a gaze that spoke of disbelief at the moment we had just shared. "I apologize," he murmured. "Please don't," I murmured in response. And that was all there was to it. Once we stepped over that threshold, there was no turning back. That night, as I lay in bed beside my husband, I closed my eyes and savored the memory of Ethan's kiss still lingering on my lips. And I understood. It was inevitable that it would progress beyond this point. It occurred 2 nights prior to the wedding. The ceremony that reintroduced him into my world. The celebration that was meant to be merely a reunion of familiar faces. I hadn't anticipated crossing paths with him again before that moment. Yet he sent me a message. "Ethan, you occupy my thoughts endlessly." My gaze fixed on the screen, my heart raced with intensity. "This isn't a good idea," I said. A lengthy silence enveloped the room. At last his response arrived. "Ethan, I understand. Yet I implore you just one more night. Simply to converse. To express all that remained unspoken in those moments. I ought to have declined. I even wrote no. However, I chose not to send it. For the simple reason that, beneath it all, I was reluctant to do so. Thus I agreed. That evening he came to collect me. I informed my husband that I would be catching up with an old college friend who happened to be in town for the wedding. That was not a falsehood. Not completely. We made our way to a serene, tucked-away wine bar. The ambience was softly illuminated, accompanied by the gentle strains of music wafting through the air. We nestled into a secluded corner booth, distanced from the bustling crowd around us. Initially, we aimed to maintain a sense of levity. We reminisced about old friends, shared amusing anecdotes from our college days, the sort of conversation 2 former acquaintances might engage in. Yet, in that moment, the dialogue began to wane. The intervals stretched out. The atmosphere surrounding us thickened with an unspoken tension, a weight neither of us dared to acknowledge. His gaze met mine, penetrating and intense. "Claire," he murmured gently, "you remain just the same." I chuckled softly, a bemused smile crossing my face. "I have transformed in every conceivable manner." Yet his lips remained uncurled. "No, you remain unmistakably yourself. The manner in which you angle your head during moments of contemplation. The subtle shift in your voice when you attempt to conceal your true emotions. It remains." His words struck me with an intensity one hadn't anticipated, because it had been ages since anyone had seen me in that way. It has been ages since anyone recalled the small details that defined my essence. And I sensed a fissure forming deep within me. We requested another glass of wine. Then yet another. Before long, the conversation shifted away from college altogether. Our conversation revolved around the essence of our connection. "I attempted to let go," he murmured softly. "I truly did. Yet, whenever I found myself in the company of another, your presence lingered in my thoughts. I often find myself pondering your activities and whether joy graces your days. If you have ever considered me." My throat constricted. "I did," I murmured softly. "More than I was willing to acknowledge. Even after I said my vows, even with the arrival of our children, there were nights I'd awaken and find my thoughts drifting to you. I find myself pondering whether you might be out there, contemplating me as well." He extended his hand over the table, his fingertips lightly grazing against my own. "I was," he stated plainly. In that instant, I realized that retreat was no longer an option. As we stepped out of the bar, the hour had grown late. The city lay in serene stillness, its streets illuminated by the gentle amber glow of the street lamps. We strolled quietly to his hotel. We both kept silent about it. Yet we were both aware of the direction this was heading. As we approached his door, a moment of uncertainty washed over me. I remained rooted to the spot, my heart pounding fiercely, while my thoughts urged me to flee. Yet my body remained still. "Claire," he murmured gently, his gaze probing into mine. "Should you choose to leave at this moment, I will comprehend. I shall not inquire once more. Yet should you choose to remain." He left it incomplete, for the simple reason that he was not obliged to. I remained. The door shut softly behind us. For a fleeting moment we simply stood there, locked in a gaze that spoke volumes. It was an experience that seemed almost dreamlike, as if entering a forgotten fragment of your past that still breathes within you. He extended his hand and gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, just as he once did. And that modest, unassuming act, it unraveled me entirely. When he kissed me, it was deliberate and unhurried. It lacked any sense of urgency. The pace was languid, soft, brimming with a quarter-century of yearning we had both attempted to conceal. Silence enveloped us, for there remained no words to utter. All the emotions we experienced in those moments, the love, the pain, the lingering questions, remained ever present. And on that night, we ceased our struggle against it. It was nothing like the films portray. It lacked perfection, yet it was undeniably real. It was soft and painful, heavy, with the burden of all the time we had missed. For a fleeting few hours, I shed the identity of a wife. I was not a mother. I was not the woman who experienced the sensation of being unseen in her own existence. I was merely Claire, the girl he had once cherished, the girl he continued to cherish. In the soft glow of the fading light, we remained there, entwined in stillness. He embraced me as he once did, his hand gently placed upon my hair. Silence enveloped us, for we were both aware of the implications that lay beneath the surface, and what it might not signify. My gaze lingered on the hand that lay upon the pillow. The wedding ring remains on my finger, and the guilt crashed over me like a relentless tide. "I don't belong here," I murmured. Ethan's grip around me grew firmer. "Please don't say that," he whispered softly. Yet it was a necessity. "I am married. A household united. This is unjust to them." He remained silent for an extended period. Then he spoke gently. "What about you? Has life treated you justly?" I remained silent, for I had lost all sense of certainty. I slipped into my clothes quietly. He escorted me to the threshold. Just before my departure, he drew me in for one final kiss. Not one filled with fervor, yet a gentle, lingering kiss that carried the weight of farewell, despite our shared understanding that it was anything but. Upon my arrival, the house lay shrouded in darkness. I lingered in the hallway, attuned to the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the subtle ticking of the clock. All appeared indistinguishable, yet I had changed. That night, I found myself lying in bed beside my husband. He stirred, still caught in the haze of slumber, and murmured, "You're home late. Did you enjoy yourself?" "Indeed," I murmured. And that was the end of it. No one was aware. No soul would ever uncover the truth. Yet as I shut my eyes, Ethan's touch lingered on my skin, and I was aware. It was clear that this was just the beginning, not a mere fleeting moment. The dawn that followed was shrouded in a haze. As dawn broke, I rose from my slumber, brewed a fresh pot of coffee, and settled into my usual spot at the kitchen table. Yet there was an unmistakable sense of change in the air. The lingering sensation of Ethan's touch remained on my skin. I can still savor the memory of his kiss. I can still hear his voice softly calling my name in the shadows. What could possibly be worse? I have no regrets about it. Not at this moment. Tom descended the stairs a short while later, pressed a gentle kiss to my cheek, and greeted me with a simple, "Morning." I returned the smile, as per usual. For a fleeting instant, I pondered whether he could perceive it within the depths of my gaze. If he could somehow sense that a change had occurred. Yet he remained oblivious. Naturally, he did not. What would compel him to do that? On that day, I navigated the routine as if nothing had transpired. I made my way to the office. I gathered some groceries. I prepared dinner. I inhabited the character I had embodied for 2 decades. Yet within, a tempest raged. That night, I received a text from Ethan. "You occupy my thoughts endlessly." My hands quivered as I responded. "I feel the same." In an instant, the attraction between the two realms intensified. Our reunion came swiftly, as if the universe conspired to bring us back together without delay. It began with mere justifications. A warm cup of coffee, midday meal, merely to converse. Yet with each passing moment, the facade of innocence grew increasingly difficult to maintain. On a serene afternoon, we gathered at the park. The warmth enveloped the day, creating a sensation that was both gentle and infinite. We strolled for what felt like an eternity, engaging in conversations that danced around the heart of the matter, avoiding the very topic that weighed heavily on our minds. We paused beneath the tree, enveloped in stillness. He extended his hand toward mine. I remained steadfast, unwilling to retreat. For just a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to entertain the possibility that this could evolve into something greater than it appeared. Yet, the truth lingered in the shadows, ever patient. For every fleeting moment spent in his presence, I was inevitably drawn back to the solitude of home, to the dwelling I had constructed, to the man I chose to share my life with, to the young souls who continued to seek my guidance. With every passing moment, the burden of my actions became increasingly profound. Ethan began to crave something greater. Though he never voiced it directly, I sensed it deeply within me. As his messages began to stretch and expand, in the manner of his gaze upon me after we shared the night together, in the stillness that ensued after I expressed my need to return home. One evening, after we had shared our time together, he drew me near and whispered gently, "Claire, I don't want to be merely this. I desire you, each and every one of you. Not fragments of you I can take for a fleeting moment." My heart constricted. "Ethan, I'm unable to." He interrupted me with a soft touch. "What is the reason? Is it due to him? Is it due to the life you have created? Is that truly sufficient for you? Do they suffice for your needs?" I averted my gaze, fighting to hold back the tears. "It's not as straightforward as that," I murmured. "The moment to determine whether we possess the courage, or the self-interest, to gamble at all." Yet the clock struck its final hour. One afternoon he sent me a text. "Before I depart, shall we rendezvous? Only one final time." The message held my gaze for what felt like an eternity. It was as if I had experienced this moment before. Our initial reconnection brought a sense of resolution, and now we found ourselves in this familiar place once more. Continuing to feign that this would resolve anything, I responded in writing. "Indeed. Guide me to the location." Our paths crossed by the serene waters of the lake, the very lake we frequented during our college days. In those days we would perch on the hood of his car, gazing at the water shimmering beneath the moonlight, sharing dreams of the future we envisioned for ourselves. Returning there now felt almost like an act of cruelty. The future we envisioned has yet to materialize. Upon my arrival, he was already present. He stood by the water, hands tucked into his pockets, gazing at the shimmering reflection of the setting sun. Upon turning to face me, a smile spread across his face. Yet it was a smile tinged with sorrow, the kind you offer when the conclusion is already clear to you. "Hello," I murmured gently. "Hello," he murmured in reply. For what felt like an eternity we remained still, caught in a suspended moment. We strolled quietly beside the shimmering lake. The only sound was the gentle rustle of leaves underfoot. At last he uttered a word. "I imagined I would experience resolution. Are you aware? Reuniting with you once more. Expressing the unspoken words that linger in our hearts. Yet, it seems as though I've merely reopened all the old wounds." I exhaled unsteadily. "I feel the same." He halted his steps and faced me. "Claire, I truly meant what I said about wanting you to join me. I continue to do so. Perhaps we can begin anew. There's still time." A weight settled upon my chest. A fragment of my being yearned to utter the word yes. To cast aside all that is secure, all that is familiar, and rush headlong into the blaze of what once was. Yet, a different part of me, the one that held memories of my children, my husband, the life I had created, understood that I simply couldn't. "I cannot," I murmured. His eyes brimmed with tears, yet he held them back. "I understand," he murmured gently. I was aware even before the question left my lips. Yet, I felt compelled to make the attempt. We lingered in silence, our gazes locked in an unspoken exchange. And I sensed it, that profound, unwavering reality. He was the love I could never hold on to, the affection that would forever linger in my thoughts. If only circumstances could change, I remarked. I feel the same, he whispered. He leaned in, his hands gently cradling my face, and pressed their lips against mine. This kiss was unlike any other, devoid of yearning or despair. It was gentle, unhurried, a kiss that lingered with the weight of farewell. As he withdrew, he leaned his forehead gently against mine. It seems we were never truly done, were we? He whispered. Absolutely not, I replied. My voice faltered. Yet we must be. He shut his eyes. Then he nodded and withdrew. I observed him as he turned and departed. He forged ahead, never glancing over his shoulder. I remained silent, for there are farewells that resonate in silence, more profound than any spoken phrase. I lingered by the lake long after he had departed. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky adorned in rich hues of deep blue and gray, and I experienced a profound sense of emptiness, not due to his absence. Yet, I lost a piece of myself that I had only discovered in his presence. Upon my return home, an enveloping silence greeted me within the walls of the house. Tom lounged in the living room, teetering on the edge of slumber as the flickering images danced across the screen. His gaze lifted as I entered the room. "Hello," he murmured gently. "Are you all right?" "Indeed," I murmured. It was the most secure deception I had ever uttered. Life resumed its usual rhythm after that. Or perhaps it appeared to be normal. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I stirred from my slumber, prepared a cup of coffee, managed the household duties, and nobody was aware. No one ever shall. Yet, in those quiet hours of the night, when the world holds its breath, I find solace in closing my eyes. Once again I find myself at that lake. Once more, enveloped in his embrace. In the existence we nearly embraced. I believed I sought resolution. I believed that encountering him once more would mend the piece of me that perpetually questioned. Yet, it only served to remind me that certain doors remain perpetually ajar. Do I feel remorse for it? I'm uncertain. I lament the falsehoods, the shroud of mystery, the burden I shall bear for eternity. But what about him? Negative. For an instant, just a brief, elusive instant, I recalled the sensation of being genuinely acknowledged. Despite my inability to hold on to him, I shall bear him aloft, without fail.